Fatality is still.
We're live now, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to the July meeting of the Advanced Albany Alliance. Alan Alexander set the tone for a very quick but very informative meeting. We'll try to do the same with the big meeting. Did everyone have, and he had the roll call. I've never done that, but we do have a quorum. Okay. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve them? Thank you. All right. Okay. Any comments or questions? And all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay. Let us move to the committee reports, and Mr. Alexander has the floor.
Yes, as we just reviewed at our finance committee meeting, we have a very strong cash position at $7.5 million. Our net position stands at $110,701 compared to budgeted deficit of $561,147, so we're doing good. The big news is we're expected to get another $3 million in the stage grant by the end of the quarter. That will continue, that we will then disperse out for awarded grants that have been awarded, that have been approved already. Our revenue through the year, through 6 months is $2.75 million. That's from a combination of reimbursement from ACBDC, the Pine Hills Authority, management fees, reimbursement, and operating funds from the IDA, as well as hotel occupancy tax and arts and culture grants, which are restricted for grant disbursements. So that is my summary of the Finance Committee meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Alan? Do we have a vote on this?
No, sir.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to the CFO's report.
Just a couple of updates. We are hoping to receive the second disbursement of hotel tax by the end of this week, if not then next week. We did receive the second round of funding for the arts and culture grants, which we are dispersing a majority of this Friday. The funds are set to go out to the awardees.
Any questions for Amy? Thank you. Then we'll move to the CEO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick update. We did talk briefly in the Finance Committee meeting about the management function that the Alliance provides for all the other county economic development agencies. And I did want to just kind of go through it. The Alliance staff provide support to not only the Alliance, but the Albany County Business Development Corporation, which administers the AACA Loan Fund, the Albany County Industrial Development Agency, the Albany County Capital Resources Corporation, and the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority, our newest entity. We are the official staff of those, and we have management agreements with all of those that reimburse us for our costs of management. And in addition to that, we also staff the so-called Stage Committee. This is a program that you may recall the legislature set up some years back. STAGE stands for Sustainable Technology and Green Energy, and that's been a tremendous economic development tool for us in making some of the things happen that we've had, not the least of which being, Plug Power, Regeneron, Altec Steel, Ecovative, and so on. So, with a relatively small staff here, the group here has really done a great job administering those organizations, and in many instances have improved the management of those organizations. These are not easy organizations to management. They are regulated by the Authority Budget Office, New York State Authority Budget Office. We have to comply with all of the so-called Paris reporting, and that's the Public Authority Reporting Information System. Nothing to do with France. Staff's really done a great job in doing this, and, morning, Mike. Again, we continue to do that, and all of these things, this is not just kind of serendipitous. All of this was in the 2019 economic strategy, the county executive and the legislature published. So that's really our blueprint for the things that we do. We're trying not to be all things to all people. That oftentimes, dilutes an organization's effectiveness. Being 2025, I think it might be a good time for the Alliance to kind of do a refresh of that study. And I think that's something that, we may want to kick off. The last study was done by a combination of Saratoga Economic Development Organization called Camoin Associates, and was done in conjunction with Bergman, which is a engineering firm. That may be time to do that. And, this is something that I think the board should be involved in. I don't know if much will change there, but it might be. And I think it's just good to continue to, refine and revise the strategy as we go along. One of the things that has shifted on us is in the alternative energy world. The offshore wind initiative is basically pencils down for everybody for the present. Governor Hochul was very successful in reinstituting the work stop that the federal government put out for the Empire Wind project off the coast of Long Island. That's restarted, but there are no new projects starting. And as you may recall, we had close to $2 billion of project interest in Albany County, primarily at the ports of Albany and Queens, from offshore wind manufacturing. That's just, on hold for the present. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, it just might be a good time to do maybe we don't have to do a full-blown strategy from the ground zero, but maybe a refresh of the strategy on that. Any thoughts or comments on that from any board members?
I think it's always a good idea to refresh your strategic plan.
Right.
Yeah, what year was the?
It was 2019.
Yeah.
Can't believe that's almost 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so just a couple of updates. As you know, we do manage the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. Just a brief update. Most of this has already been in the papers, but we continue to manage that. We brought on the consulting firm, CPL, and they've started their work. We had a meeting yesterday with CPL and their public engagement partners, which are going to get started. The public engagement aspect of the master plan for the campus is very important. We have to let people know what the plans are and let them have some input on it, and do that in a way that it's reflected in the final plan. Not everything is going to get in there, and there are, I'm sure, going to be things that people are not wildly enthusiastic about. But hopefully we can, with our consultants, navigate those waters so that there's, as much as in that master plan as the various stakeholders from the neighborhood, the city, and the entire county would like to see happen there. We also, you may have read that we passed at the last board meeting of the authority, we passed a resolution approving the so-called 90-day statement. By law, and Tom will correct me if I'm wrong, but he's the one who kind of keeps us on track on this. By law, the authority is required for any real estate property dispositions to issue a 90-day statement to the state controller, the leaders of both houses of the state legislature, budget director,
OGS.
and OGS, right?
6
Yeah.
Authority budget.
Right, and we, of course, will be sending it to, the chair of the county legislature, our county controller, and so on. But the purpose of this is to publish the appraisal, which we have to have done, and the purchase price, and any delta, and an explanation for any delta between the two, which in this case there is. The county is looking to buy 5 buildings from the authority to the tune of about $6 million. Those buildings are appraised for about $9 million, but, there is clearly, a perfectly legitimate explanation. This is a public purpose, and all of this is county money. The authority is a separate legal entity, but all of this is really under the auspice of the county. The county supports guarantees the debt through an appropriation every year. The county pays the operating expenses of the authority and the campus maintenance and operations. So, this is, whereas there are separate legal requirements and a lot of process, which can be frustrating at times to all parties. It is required by law and something we do have to do, but the county is really at the basis for this. So we expect our master plan to be done by November of this year. We've been contacted by the governor's office and ESD to ask us to coordinate with the governor's consultant for the downtown initiative, which our consultants have done. They have a group called MIG. I'm not sure what MIG stands for. It's a consulting group out of New York City. So, we're not in the so-called mile radius of downtown, but we were asked to just kind of compare notes. And we certainly don't want to be in a position where we're in any way competitive with the governor's, downtown $400 million initiative. So, I'm glad to see that there's some good cooperation there. There is a good bit of interest for the campus. There are some broad brush strokes, whether these turn out to be real or not. There are some institutions of higher education that express some interest. A kind of a catch-all of daycare and children's services is something that there's quite a bit of interest in. For pre-K and daycare, I'm told that there's somewhat of a dearth of resources in that area in the county. And there are some cost issues, and apparently the state just, Governor Hochul approved a daycare capital fund that will provide capital dollars for individuals or institutions looking to open up daycare facilities. So, and lastly, broad stroke, housing is a key component of what there seems to be some, unsolicited interest, which is what all these, we didn't ask people, I just kind of volunteered this. And in particular, the notion of a 55+ community seems to be, several interests have approached the authority with suggestions in that front. So we'll see how this all plays out through the planning process. We've got to have the architects and engineers look at the layout of the campus. I think, and I was talking to our consultant, Sandy Mathis, about this yesterday. I think one of the more challenging aspects of the redevelopment of the campus are going to be the houses. The buildings, they are kind of what I call special purpose, but I think there are enough other special purpose interests that we may get used. But the houses run the gamut from these spectacular old, Victorian era houses that are very nicely fit out, some of which have been cut up into offices or dormitories, but many of which, the original architectural, treatments are in there, and they're beautiful. But there are some others that are not very distinctive architecturally, and were never built that way, and they've been cut up and, as offices, then changed to dormitories, and it's, I think that's going to be the single biggest challenge that we have. But we'll see what the consultants have to say when they do their work. So any questions on the college before I move on? I'd like to give a couple of the other updates. Okay. Central warehouse, we're still moving along. We are about to sign a contract with the demolition firm, the so-called Gramercy Lee Rowe. It's a partnership of two companies, one of which is a woman-owned business, a New York State certified woman-owned business. And we'd like to try to get that moving as quickly as possible. It's a very complicated contract, with, because there are all sorts of moving parts here, not the least of which is the handling and coordination with Amtrak. As you all know, that Amtrak line, for most of Amtrak's traffic going north and west from Albany, almost touches the central warehouse. So there's a lot of regulatory issues and of how we coordinate with Amtrak and how we stage the work so as not to interrupt any Amtrak service. The one good, bad part of it is Amtrak has reduced some of the traffic on that line because of some track improvements elsewhere on that same line. But the first piece to be undertaken here will be the asbestos mitigation. That's a significant portion of this contract, and the asbestos apparently is predominantly found in a mastic that was used to put the cork insulation in between the various floors of the central warehouse. This was an ammonia-based freezer warehouse, and they had insulation between them, and apparently there's quite a bit of asbestos in the mastic that they used to put this cork insulation in. So that'll be mitigated first, and then it will be taken down. Unfortunately, this will not be, an implosion like many of you might have seen with Caesar Palace or a wrecking ball, whacking into it. The interior floors will be removed and handled. That material is hot with asbestos, so that material has to be handled in a separate way, separate landfill, and heavily regulated by the New York State Department of Labor. And then the remaining structure of the building, and the building does stand on its own without those interior floors, will be taken down piece by piece from the top down. They have these massive cranes that they go and they just chip it away. So it's not going to be as dramatic a demolition as some of these others, but we have given some thought to, maybe doing some documenting of how this is taken down, maybe through, somebody suggested, weekly drone photographs, and, could show the demolition, and, but we'll be looking into that as well. It's hard to do, a watch party, because you'd have to be there for about, 6 months, to see these things.
Kevin, from a timeframe perspective, what is would you say the tenure of one?
We're looking at about 12 to 15 months,
From start
start to finish, yeah.
So with the delay, negotiating the contract and the whole lawsuit that, congratulations, we got through, has the contractor said that keeping the price?
Oh, yeah.
So there's been no price increase?
No.
And then since the asbestos work is all inside work, there's no winter condition extra charge because the delay, or are you getting through all that stuff?
If we are able to start, we were thinking of starting in July, which we're still tracking on. We don't believe that we'll have to stop. We're just talking about the asbestos work, really and I'm not exactly sure what the reason is, cannot be done in the coldest of winter months. There's some equipment that they need to use that doesn't work, or there's a problem with that. So, but hopefully we'll try to get that done, through the next couple of months, and then go ahead with the rest of it. And listen. As you can imagine, this is not an exact, science. There will be hiccups along the way, I'm sure. I have to admit, the things I lay awake at night is, that Amtrak line, what? anything to disrupt the traffic on that line. But these guys, Gramercy Lee Row has done demolition of the live rail lines throughout New York City, has dealt with community boards, and that's also part of their engagement to be constantly updating the neighborhood, the residents and the businesses around the demolition site, to let them know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then in the week after, explain to them what did happen, so that, everybody's comfortable. One of the things that they were explaining to me that one of the projects they had down in New York City on an MTA, on demolition over an MTA rail right-of-way, live right-of-way, the neighbors were complaining about these plumes of dust. And actually, it was not dust, it was water vapor, and the water vapor is out there to keep the dust down. It's very understandable for somebody to think, those are plumes of dust, and, what are we breathing in? But it's, that's why this community engagement of this contract is also extremely important.
So how are we handling the administration of the contract? Are you gonna have someone on staff watching these guys the whole time? Are you
Yes.
gonna hire someone else? Or?
We have hired a guy, Joe Galea, who's our facilities manager. He's a guy who's worked in the private construction industry and as well as for OGS. So he's got some experience managing these contracts, and we do have some other outside consultants that we could bring in if necessary.
I got a legal question. So are we in the clear relative to the lawsuit and everything else? Is there no chance of appeal by the?
Let's talk about that in executive session.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? There is, again, the single best industrial site we have in the county is the former Altech Steel site in the town of Colony. That site is pending foreclosure by the county for back taxes. And we're working on that. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to Clayton Besh to just give everybody, Clayton's our site development person, to give everybody an update on that. And why don't you come up here, Clayton, so that you can see on the.
Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin said, the property is currently, due to unpaid back taxes, is the county is filing for in rem foreclosure. And as part of that process, the Albany County Legislature will vote on a resolution in early September to transfer the ownership to the Albany IDA. We also we're working closely with the DEC and their remediation of the fund, as they have for the past 26 years, and they're now preparing a site management plan that allow the Alliance to plan for the site's commercial development, leveraging the brownfield cleanup program to attract site developers, to attract those high capital, high salary companies to move in. In preparation for that, the Alliance has identified McFarland Johnson, a site engineer, with an RFP, will be in their site prep for a seeker review, a generic environmental impact statement, and a master plan targeting best use applications for the site in, for example, high-tech manufacturing, advanced materials, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductor supply chain for the site. And also in good news, we recently received a long-awaited customer load assessment from National Grid that has given us access to quite a bit of potential power for manufacturers that'll help us attract, hopefully, the right opportunities. Any questions?
60 megawatts. Up to, it's a lot of power.
You gotta let me know your secret on how you get Grid to do anything.
Well, this one's for free.
Yeah.
We have to pay them to do this work, to do this analysis.
So I'll ask Clayton the same question I kid about in the finances. What is it that bothers you? What are you concerned about as we move forward?
I think that's one of the things, working closely with National Grid and ISO to approve the potential power, and then to install the transformer we need to pull all that power onto the site. There are a lot of steps involved.
Yeah, this is a long process, Clayton's been working on this and, the substation that has to be built there to take down that high capacity power from those power lines running right through the site, can be, how much,
2 years,
and how much money?
$5 million.
Right. Luckily, the state just started a new program called, what is it, Sandy? Power Up. Right. And, there are some grants for us to do that and of course, the Fast New York program. So this is probably still 18, 24 months out before this site, but, for a big project, you're gonna need that kind of leeway anyway.
And when do you start looking for the people who are gonna occupy this land?
Well, it's currently, but I think the important thing is to be able to tell them we have this power. And the DEC has given us liability coverage, which we have, but we need a plan. They have to give us the plan that we can then follow. Those 2 steps.
Any other questions for Clayton?
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Clayton. Nice job. So the next project, many of you remember with perhaps a cringe or two is the 106 South Pearl Street, the former McDonald's site. We are still trying to remarket that site. We have some interest in that and we'll be working through that, but we did fence the property in, it's secured. We did have somebody who actually pitched a tent towards the backside of our property and was living back there. The Albany police chased them away, and a week later, the tent was back up and chased them away again. So, we do kind of keep an eye on it, and there are some real interest in the site. It's a critical, it's a kind of strategic point in the city's access, that corner of Madison Avenue and South Pearl, coming off of 787 and the State Empire State Plaza complex. So we're working on that. County executive has been working with some of the county legislators representing that part of the city and, trying to get their input. And so we'll see what happens there.
So who owns that now?
We do, the Alliance, you do.
And all the banks?
Yeah,
They
everything's,
went away?
everything's,
Good job.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were happy to get rid of it.
yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, Tom negotiated settlement agreements and the county legislature came up with 430, something like that. Which, we have been using to secure the site. And I think there's still some I think we still have some money left over on that.
We do.
So lastly, the arts and culture update. Alan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this. This was a fantastic and a one and only kind of effort launched by the county. I think Alan and I recall a couple of decades ago that the city used to have an arts fund, and that stopped probably
15 years,
15 years.
easily, more than 15 years ago. And Joanne, you were there.
Yeah, it was a great event.
It was very gratifying because people were sincerely appreciative of the county and this opportunity. And I hope that it made the impression, both with Joanne and the county executive, that how important this is. But they don't allow me to do numbers, but if there's room in the budget going forward, I sincerely hope that arts and culture gets a small recognition because it's throughout Albany County that these programs, small and some larger, are affected by the fact that the money's being cut every place else. And therefore, I couldn't believe how appreciative people were. So it was a short presentation. It was at the Art Institute. There was a full complement of people that were in attendance. I'm the non-politician, but I will go beg both the head of the county legislature and the county exec to continue this program.
Yeah, so what we did this year is we gave out $1,250,000 in two different tranches. First was 500,000, second was 750. And this ranged from, the more established institutes like the Albany Institute of History and Art, right down to individual artists doing some very creative new things. I think the committee that Alan put together, chaired by John Reagan, and included, let's see if we can do this, Christine Miles, Len Tantillo, Linda Jackson Chalmers, and
Oh,
Judy.
Judy, yes,
Judy again.
right.
Right.
Judy.
Did a great job. I mean, they reviewed each and every one of these applications, ranked them, rated them, and made recommendations on them. They have since, we now have the interim reports back in, I think, from all of the grantees from the first round.
Yes.
So the committee's going to be going through those and kind of seeing how everybody's done halfway through their grant. We'll stay on this. And I'd like to commend Sarah Paulson for the work she did on this too. She did a great job in supporting the committee and getting everything. I think we just sent the wire out to the second round this week.
It goes out Friday.
Goes out this Friday.
And all of you will remember that this is something that was presented to our board here, and we were the individuals that voted on the final approval. So I think we've had a really good process. And again, I've already said it, and I, at the risk of repeating myself, this has been so very well received throughout Albany County. I sincerely hope it continues. Okay.
Can I say one thing about it?
Yes.
I just want to commend this organization for putting the effort, energy, vision behind it. I also think it's really important that this kind of initiative is housed under our economic development arm, because arts and theater and music is economic development, and that point was reinforced over and over again at that event. And you couldn't help but leave there just feeling like, you know what, Albany County is doing it right. We're investing where we need to. Our economic development board saw fit to invest not inconsequential dollars into the arts. And I think this is the kind of thing that its success will build on its success. So applause all over the place. It was a great event.
Thank you. Nothing further from you.
Okay.
Do have a couple items for executive session.
Okay. Are there any other items any of the board members would like to bring up? Then we're going to vote to adjourn this meeting to go into executive session. Is there a motion?
Yeah, and the purpose of the motion would be to discuss the potential disposition of real property, the publicity of which would substantially affect the value thereof, and also to seek and obtain legal counsel.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Now do we have to vote to go into executive session? No, we voted.
There'll be no action taken.